Governor, I want to ask you a question, turning the question to police reform and actually reforming police departments. Since the killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police, we have heard many discussions about how to hold police more accountable for abuses of force. You just spoke about independent investigations, but I want to ask you about two other sort of reforms. Do you want to see the end of qualified immunity that protects abusive police officers from civil lawsuits? And do you support rewriting police union contracts to allow cities to reform and restructure their police departments?
So I'm open to discussions with the community, and rather than run out and propose solutions to all these things myself, I have decided to listen to the citizens. And so we have a task force that is led by the Black community. I think listening is pretty powerful right now to the people who have suffered this indignity and violence, and that's what we're doing. As you noted, I am confident we will pass the rule on independent investigation and independent prosecutorial, and we'll listen to other ideas that are brought before us. One way or another, we have to bring more justice. We can do that. That is not inimical or inconsistent with good policing. I also believe we need to look at ways to provide help for folks in mental health problems. We've had some disasters where police are called and people have been in mental health crises. I think we have to find a way to deal with those mental health challenges to prevent some of this violence. And again, I want to note that this whole debate, I hope it comes from a broad-scale societal conversation about how to get to racial inequity, and I believe we can do that.
Thank you, Governor. Chief Culp, I want to ask you the same questions. You have worked in law enforcement for a decade. I would like to hear your views on this, on qualified immunity. Do you want to see an end to the qualified immunity that protects abusive police officers from civil lawsuits? And do you think that police union contracts need to be rewritten so that cities can have different police reforms and restructure their departments?
Well, I don't agree with the way you formed that question. Qualified immunity does not protect abusive officers. Officers are prosecuted all the time for committing crimes. And the governor talking about mental health in this state, let me tell you a thing or two about the mental health problem in this state. I've dealt with it on the street level. I was a narcotics detective for 3 years. I've dealt with people in addiction. I've dealt with people in mental health crisis. And the mental health system in this state is a joke. And he's had 8 years to do something about it. But he lost certification to Western State Hospital. And with that went hundreds of beds and millions of dollars from the federal government for our mental health system in this state so that we can help people that are on the streets and in mental health crisis. When an officer, and this happens every single day, every single night all across this state, I have had this happen almost every time. When someone tries to take their life, obviously they are in a mental health crisis. They are taken to the hospital by a police officer and talk to the first level mental health counselor, and they call around this state to try to find a bed for them to get higher level of care. And 9 times out of 10, there isn't one, and they're turned back out on the street. Thank you, Governor Inslee.
Governor Inslee, we're going to have 45 seconds for a rebuttal to what Chief Culp just said about mental health, and also anything else you want to add about his statement.
Well, we are moving on to a major reform of our mental health care system. We have improved it significantly. Our hospital improved significantly over the last few years, but it is an ancient facility, and we need to reform our system, and that's why we are starting a program to get mental health in communities, to have community-based mental health where it's closer to people. But if people don't have insurance, they cannot pay for this. And the fundamental problem of Chief Culp when he talks about this issue is his party and his president want to take away health insurance and mental health insurance from 800,000 people. And then whenever we talk about actually paying for this, they want to cut the budgets. His very opening statement was how he wants to cut the budgets. Well, if you're going to cut the budgets, you're going to cut people who are in pain, including mental health pain. We need to care for people.
Thank you, Governor Inslee. Chief Culp, I want to give you a moment to respond to that, but I do want to ask you a little bit about, you have said that good police officers arrest the bad ones and put them in jail where they belong, but we do see police officers who are rehired after being fired for misuses of force. Can you address that?
Yeah, can you tell me which circumstance you're talking about, which officer?
For instance, in Seattle, this often happens with appeals to arbitration, where an officer is fired, appeals to an arbitrator, and then they are reinstated. In Seattle, it happened when a man punched a handcuffed woman in the face and broke her eye socket. while she was handcuffed, and then he was fired but reinstated when he appealed to an arbitrator. So I'm curious if how would you address or anything like that dealing with arbitration?
Well, that sounds like that was Chief Best's department, and you're telling me that she's not for law and order, she's racist or some way?
I did not.
I'm
say
not
that.
sure.
I did not say that.
Okay, so I don't know the details of that case. Anytime an officer abuses their power, they should be held accountable. I'm all for that.